Welcome to the Black Money Matters podcast, presented to you by the Los Angeles Sentinel and Chase Bank. I'm your guest host, Betti Halsell. This podcast series aims to empower our community by providing the tools needed to build financial wealth through home ownership, entrepreneurship, and financial literacy. On today's podcast, we will be speaking with Leslie Jones. She is the owner of the 1010 Wine and Events, an upscale wine bar located in the heart of Inglewood, California, the only one of its kind in the City of Champions. It's the Black Money Matters podcast. We're here at 1010 Wine with Leslie Jones. Hey, Leslie.
Hey.
How you doing, girl?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. How was your morning? How are you feeling?
I feel good. Good morning. Got my makeup done.
You look good, girl.
Thank you.
You look really good.
Thank you.
I want to start. Thank you. I try. I want to really start with just giving you your flowers in starting this amazing establishment.
Thank you.
I love this art installation that we have behind us.
Yes.
And this wine is called Aslina, right?
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that wine. I know it had a really unique story.
Yeah, so this is one of our favorite brands and one of my favorite stories to tell about the wines that we carry. So Aslina is a South African-based wine company, and the owner is the only Black female winemaker in the country of South Africa.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy that you pinpoint, the community within this industry. So that is amazing. And thank you so much for working so hard to find these types of wines to bring to your local community.
Yeah, no, it's a treat for us. So we're glad when we're able to introduce these brands to our city.
Nice. And so getting right into it, talk about how you started 1010 Wine and Events and where did this child of a business come from?
Yeah. So my sister and I were kind of both independently looking for spaces in Inglewood. I'm a wedding planner, so I was looking for a space to host events. And my sister really got into wine when she was in law school. So she was looking for a space to have a tasting room. And we were looking kind of all over the city. We knew that we wanted it to be in Inglewood because we're born and raised here. And so when we found this space, we were like, this is perfect. We can kind of merge both of our ideas together. We can do wine tastings, and then we can also host a lot of special events. So, that's kind of, how it came to be. But we kind of were both on kind of independent paths. And then this space actually brought us together to do it together.
What a beautiful union. And who knew that was going to come about your life and your sister's life, right? And how that it was even going to coexist.
Exactly.
That's amazing. And who doesn't like wine at their events?
Right. Exactly. I do.
Exactly. So that brings me to my next question. And I think you kind of answered it before, but it was your sister who had the extensive knowledge in wine.
Right.
Did she kind of depart some of that information to you? Did you guys study together before or?
Yeah. So she's the one who's the expert. She's the one who has curated our wine list. So like I said, she kind of got into the wine when she was in law school. She traveled a bit. And when she would travel, she would go to different wine regions. So when she would come home, she would introduce different wines to me. And growing up, our parents really enforced the importance of supporting small businesses, Black-owned businesses, women-owned businesses. So when we started getting into wine, we started looking to see what Black people were doing in this space. And so that's how we came to carry the largest selection of Black-owned wines in the state of California, because these were the wines that we discovered when we first discovered wines. And so we wanted to just serve people at 1010 the wines we were drinking at home.
Absolutely. And I think what's really prominent in this story is the family core values that were installed in you already put you on a trajectory of, looking and focusing on the community. And I think that's, if I'm being transparent, what we lack as a culture is we are so used to being American that we forget that there's a whole Black history and culture that we should also really focus on. So kudos to your parents.
No, they really made that a big deal when we were younger, and it definitely is reflecting in our adult life.
Yes, I mean, absolutely. So, okay, you have this amazing idea. You and your sister are doing the thing, and then the pandemic hits.
Yes.
So how did you piled through such an uncertain time. Like up was down and down was up. No one knew what was going on, literally.
Right, at all.
So how did that work out for your business?
Yeah, it was definitely difficult. So we got this space at the end of 2019, and we had plans to open just a couple of months later. And so, we had some delays with permits and construction and all those things. And once we got over that hump and we were getting into February, March of 2020, we're like, perfect, we're going to just start construction and be open shortly after. But then, of course, the pandemic happened. And like I said, my day job is a wedding planner. So not only did, other sources of income dry up, that did as well because events weren't happening. So we kind of had to be creative about what we were going to do to keep our business going. We knew that we weren't in a position to continue constructions on this space, but we had already made the announcement about us opening. We had already started to make connections with our community. So we wanted to make sure that we were still relevant and people knew that it may not be right now, but we're going to open. So we started doing just by accident, like some virtual tastings. And the reason why we did them was because we were trying to figure out the wines that we were going to have on our wine menu. And then people that attended them were like, can you do this for my baby shower? Can you do this for my sorority fundraiser? Can we do this for a bridal party? And that's kind of how we moved into doing more virtual tastings and what really kind of got us through the pandemic.
And one of the things that I don't know if it hit you while you were doing it, or maybe you thought of it as an afterthought, but with those virtual tastings, that was a level of marketing that you tapped into.
Right.
And that just expanded, your reach. Cause some people would have say the pandemic didn't hit, you would start your brick and mortar and then you would be constantly thinking like, okay, how do we get the word out?
Right.
But since the pandemic hit, a blessing came and you're like, well, let's start a digital platform first, reach thousands,
right.
and then bring it back home. So that's amazing.
Yeah. And that's literally what happened. And the first couple of months that we were open, people came in and they were like, oh, we were on your virtual tasting from here. And we did the virtual tasting with this group. And some people I remembered, some people I didn't, but that's the reason why they came in and they started following us on Instagram and they were like, we were checking to see when you were going to tell us when you were opening. And so that really was a part of our customer base when we first opened.
Look at you starting a business to then bring business to your business. Yes. Right. I love that. So talk about some of the other challenges that you may have faced, even, starting obviously from the pandemic, since that was like the birthplace, and then moving towards like finding these types of wines and carrying certain licenses and insurances and all of that.
Yeah, I think, this is a business that requires a lot of different moving pieces. And my sister and I don't have experience in this space. So it's actually kind of funny, like before here, I never served before. I never bartended before. I was a host at like PF Chang's for like a week and I got fired like when I was in college. So I never really had a ton of restaurant or bar experience, and neither did my sister. So we had to really learn all of these things along the way. And we definitely had mentors that helped us. But like you said earlier, this is a really unique space. So some of the things that other people in this space may be doing, we were doing other things. So I think the biggest thing for us with starting was just making sure that we had all of our ducks in a row, like making sure we had all of our licenses, we had all of our insurance. We were building a team that was going to be loyal and kind, and gave great customer service. And so there's so many moving parts to this business. And I think for us, that was just, really difficult to kind of lay it all out and figure out what needed to be done. But what ended up working out was that I have my strengths and my sister has her strengths. And we're really good about, okay, that's a Leslie thing, that's a Leanne thing. And we really try to just, do our own things, understanding what the brand is, understanding what our ultimate goal is. And so that's been working for us.
Couple things that came to mind is one, the happiness that you may share with your sister in building this in probably the day that it opened, and the energy, the chaos, everything, the problems even, is just like you're having a problem about your business.
Right.
And that is so much strength in that. So I can't imagine like the joy you may feel. And the second thing was, luckily you have your sister, right? Because a lot of people go into business by themselves.
Right,
and they don't have anyone to kind of like, if you're too, hyper focused on something or anxiety driven, I'm sure Leanne came to your rescue and vice versa. Right. So grateful, to have that family aspect.
Yeah, no, it's super helpful, and it really does keep us grounded and helps us stay on track. And like you said, the opening was very emotional for us because we had this idea and had been on this journey, what felt like a really, really long time because, the months in the pandemic felt like double the time. So it felt like we had been working on this for like 10 years. So to finally like see people in the space and it be fun and people are eating and drinking and having a good time was like very, very surreal for us and very emotional.
Absolutely. Yeah. And one of the questions that came into my head is, how did you deal with the red tape that comes with getting your license and insurance? A lot of people, I think, including myself, get a little weary of that. And it's like, oh, they're stopping my progression. They don't want me to progress. So how did you get through that process? Yeah. I mean, I think, and something that my sister and I always say to each other is, don't take things personally, right? So, there are all of these procedures and processes in place that the city puts in place, the county puts in place, the health department puts in place, ABC, which is the governing department for liquor license. All of these things are put in place. And when they put these things in place, they weren't saying, I'm doing this to make it more difficult for 10-10 wine and events, right? They're just doing it because that's the way things are set up. And so for us, we really just try to stay positive in that aspect and just realizing like these are hoops that everybody had to go through. So if we want to get it done, we have to get it done. And that doesn't mean that we didn't get frustrated. That didn't mean that, we didn't stop along the way because it was too much or we needed a break. We definitely did. But we just would pause and then keep going because the alternative would be not to have your space open. So which would you prefer? Totally. And so that brings me to my next question. When it came to funding, did you have outside support in that?
Yeah. So we definitely, like I said, this had been an idea of ours for a while. And so we had savings that we had built up, that we were going to use for this space. But we also got a lot of help from family and friends. We had people that believed in what we were doing, and, shout out to my dad who literally has helped us every step of the way. And so we've had people in our lives that have contributed to it. And then, we've had to get loans for certain things. Thankfully, we haven't had to take out a huge amount of loans. Like, our business has been profitable in the first year. And like I said, some of those things that we were doing before we opened, like the virtual tastings and consulting for different wine events, helped us kind of continue to build this space. But we've had to get help along the way. And it was just important for us to make sure that we didn't get too far into debt, into something that we couldn't get ourselves out of. So every time that we have borrowed, it's always been responsible, and it's been for a certain reason that we know is going to be profitable in the long run. Right. And some of the key points that you said, a lot of businesses within their first year just break even, but you were profitable. And that was due to the groundwork and field work you did during the pandemic of getting your name out there. And that's amazing. I'm just seeing it all trickle in, and it's just like, wow, that and a higher power definitely just set you guys up for success. Absolutely. So moving into your demeanor, as you said, and your personality, I'm sure you had to adjust to understanding finances in a bigger light. Mm-hmm. What have you uncovered as an entrepreneur and businesswoman that had more of a I need to learn this about finance? And what are the things that you started to have to pay attention to? Yeah. So the biggest thing is really not biting off more than you can chew. And so when we opened up this space, we only had 60 wines on the menu. And the reason why we did that was because that was what we could afford in inventory at the time. So we knew eventually we wanted our wine menu to grow. But instead of overextending ourselves by, putting all the wines that we initially wanted to put on the menu day one and then try to figure out how to sell them, we're like, we're going to scale. So have we thought about opening up another location? Absolutely. Have we thought about doing all these other things? Yes. But we make sure that we don't overextend ourselves financially so that we don't feel that pressure to fulfill all of these financial commitments. And so it might seem like a small or silly thing, but I think a big mistake that a lot of entrepreneurs do is that they get excited. And they might have the funding initially to do some of these things. So they're like, we're going to do this, and this. We're going to have 6 locations. We're going to have a mobile bar. We're going to do all those things. And then now you're responsible for paying the people that are doing these things, responsible for keeping up with the inventory. And that was just not a pressure that my sister and I wanted. We knew that we wanted to start small and gradually move into something bigger. So even our space now, like I think we have like maybe 20 tables. When we first started, we had 15 because that's how many tables we could afford. And then we started making some money and we're like, okay, we can pay for 5 more tables. We can pay for 10 more chairs. And that's literally how we do every part of our business.
So what I'm hearing is, and I think just to speak on the mistake, right, that a lot of entrepreneurs make, it takes so much to just trust yourself and believe in yourself. So I think when they finally get to the point where like, I can do this, they just take flight and it's like, I'm going to do this.
Right.
And where you and your sister, luckily, I think because both of you had separate entities, where it was, independent workmanship, you realized and took from that experience, like, yes, we can do this, but we're going to have parameters in which there's a budget.
Right.
And we're going to adhere to that budget. And we're going to expand only when we see that we can expand.
Exactly. Yeah.
I understand. And with that, because a lot of it is prediction, right? You don't know a lot of things when you go into business and there's a lot of risk.
Right.
But you've also mentioned within this conversation, the knowledge that comes behind that will mitigate that risk and you'll feel more confident in what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So moving into your business, so 90% of the beer and wine champagne selection is Black owned. First of all, wow, didn't even know that was possible. How did you make that, a significant part? And you kind of answered it with your family core values, but why is that so important for 1010 Wine and Events?
Yeah. So people ask me all the time, like, what am I most proud of about opening this space? And that's definitely the biggest thing for me. So Black-owned wine companies make up less than 1% of the wine companies in the country. So for us, the wines that we're carrying, we're not just carrying them because we like them, which we really do, but it's important to us because when you support our business, you're now supporting and patronizing these other Black-owned businesses. And that's huge for us because we know that people are coming in, they're enjoying the wines, and now they're going to their local grocery stores. They're going to their local Total Wines. They're going to their local liquor stores and asking for these brands so that these brands can now be carried in other places. So our goal was never for people to say, oh, you can only find this wine at 1010 in the Los Angeles area. That's not our goal. Our goal is that these wine brands expand and are at other spaces in the city so that their brands and their companies are blowing up too. Like that's what our goal is. And so we've had winemakers come in here to get their wine on the menu. We'll try it, we'll like it, and we'll say, hey, have you been to this place? It's around the corner from here. Have you been to this place? Have you been to this place? Maybe try it out and try to get your wines in there too, because I don't think the final goal should be getting your wine into 1010.
Absolutely. And then even bigger scale, you never know who's eating here or drinking here. So like it could be, a franchise owner looking for a new product and like, this wine is really good. And next thing you know, they're in all these franchises. So it's just the exposure, I think, is a really key point to bring up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's funny you say that. So in October, we curated the wine menu for Insecure Fest. So the big party that they threw before the premiere of the show. And that's literally what happened. Somebody from Insecure came in. They liked some of the wines that they had been served. So they asked us to curate the menu. And it was great because those winemakers were able to come from Northern California and DC and really showcase their wines. And like I said, it's not about 1010 because nobody at the event knew that we curated the menu. But everybody now sees these wines and they've tried them and now they're looking for them on online or in their local spots. So that's big for us.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I think that goes to show you the importance of everyone wants to start a business, to be a business owner and have that entrepreneurship. But then I think you get into it and you're like, wow, my purpose is actually to highlight and shine others who, are doing the same thing, but in a different way. And I think that's a beautiful vehicle that you're using to showcase all of these Black-owned businesses once.
Yeah. Thank you.
So how do you connect with these Black businesses? How do you find them? Do they find you, or how does that work?
It's a mix of both. Like I mentioned before, there's some of these wine brands we've been enjoying for years. So we knew where to find them. We were a part of their wine clubs. We have visited their wineries before. So we knew when we opened up our space, we were already letting them know, like, we're opening up something soon. As soon as we get it open, we want your wines in our space. But now I would say more often, now that we've become a little bit more popular, people do reach out to us to carry their wines. And we love that too. And what we have done to kind of make sure that those wine brands are successful here, because we might try the wine and love it. But we have almost 100 wines in our menu, right? So it's kind of hard as a person who maybe hasn't been here before or doesn't know about wine to pick a certain wine. So what we do is we have a series called Meet the Winemaker. We do complimentary tastings, and we allow winemakers to bring their wine in, have our customers try it. They love it. And so now when they come in the next time, they're going to order that brand, so that we're not just bringing them on the menu one time and only ordering from them one time because, after the first time, nobody knows who they are. So this gives us an opportunity to introduce our customers to this new brand, and allow them to try the wines. And then they keep on coming back and asking for it. So it's great because it really helps the winemaker be able to still have a partnership with us versus just coming one day and letting my sister and I try the wines. We love it. And then it's on the menu for 2 weeks and not on it anymore. So
that to me is a really good thing to have people, because I'm someone who will try something and that's what I get from that place from now on.
Yeah.
There's no other thing on the menu, but it's good that you open up to your guests to be part of the process of, winemakers and getting them into your collection. Would you say that that's part of the criteria, or how does that go? I know your sister probably plays a heavier hand in selecting the wines, but what have you seen as someone who's in those rooms is like, okay, how does a selection work?
Any winemaker that has several varietals in their collection that's helpful. So if you only have a Pinot Noir or you only have like a Chardonnay, it's a little bit more difficult for us to carry your brand because we already have so many of these. But if you have a red blend, a Pinot Noir, a Sauvignon Blanc, a Cab, then we're like, okay, let's try them all out and see which one kind of sticks with our customer base. So it really just kind of depends. I think the thing that has been most difficult for us with kind of curating the menu is there are some very popular Black-owned wine brands, and people come in and ask for them by name, which is great. We love that. But we also want to introduce people to some of these smaller wine brands you wouldn't know about as Lena if you hadn't come in here and, talk to us about it. And so it's important for us to not only expose like those big brands, which are great too. We're talking about building wealth. We want those brands around as well. But we also want to give brands like Aslina to be in a position like those other big brands.
And to hear their stories.
Exactly.
These wines travel, right? And they just carry such a richness, not only in taste and density, but just their stories behind how they got in the bottle.
Right. Exactly.
So that is really fun to learn about as a consumer and as a business owner.
Yeah.
How would you describe your clientele?
So it's actually really funny. Most of the people that come in here are women, and they're anywhere between like 25 to 50 years old. But the guys in the area are starting to realize that there are a lot of attractive single women at 1010. So we've been getting some more guys coming through here.
Like, what do we do?
Right, exactly. So it's kind of changing a bit, but this is really a fun place for girls' night out. This is really a fun place for date nights. And we've been seeing, even like guys coming together and, having a guy's night out here. And so it's been fun. It's interesting to see like how it's changing. And then actually like how diverse our clientele is. Like we're the middle of Inglewood, but we have gotten some recognition from different blogs and different newspapers. And so, yeah, it's interesting to see people that have traveled from throughout other parts of the city. Like we had people that traveled from Pasadena or even as far as the Inland Empire to come and visit our space. So it's not, it's becoming a bit more diverse than what I thought it would be.
And I just thought of another idea. Once they find their soulmate here, you can plan their wedding. Cha-ching.
I'm in your life forever.
Right. They thank you for just A through Z. It's a full package.
Exactly.
So you have some tasty things on your menu. I'm going to disclose this. I came, personally.
Yes.
I remember seeing you, girl.
Yes, I was here.
I saw some salmon that looked really good. I was eyeing it, So talk about like the different appetizers and how the kitchen kind of marinates with the wine.
Yeah. So it was important for us to have like some traditional wine bar dishes. So we have a charcuterie board, we have steamed mussels, we have like breads and butters, but we also wanted to be true to the food that we like to eat as well. And so shout out to Chef Kendra of Swift Cafe in Leimert Park. She kind of helped us curate our initial menu. And then as our team has grown, the chefs that have helped us now kind of bring on some new things. Shout out to Jeff and Antoine. They created our happy hour menu. They created our brunch menu. And it really is just things that we like to eat. So what you saw were the salmon bites, which we kind of did as a special the night of my birthday. And they sold out and people came back the next day asking for them. So we were like, oh, maybe we should put those on the menu. Our most popular dish is the shrimp and risotto. So it's like a play on shrimp and grits, super flavorful, goes great with like a glass of Sauvignon Blanc. So it's a great dish that people come in and ask for all the time.
And let's not glaze over the bread and butter. So the butter, everything has flavor here.
Yes.
You can just tell.
Yeah.
And I think that also stands out as a Black company. Mm-hmm. It's going to be some good food.
Right.
So the butter itself, I forget the different ones that I tried, but there was like a garlic one.
Yeah. So we have a sage and brie. So it's the herb sage, and then brie butter that we kind of infuse in it. We also have a Merlot and shallot butter. So like Merlot wine with shallots. And then we also have a Cajun butter, which is probably the most popular. And we put on a couple other dishes that we have here. And we have people like times that we've run out of the butters because we make them fresh every day. People get furious. Like they're like,
where is
we came
my
for
butter?
The bread and
I
butter.
came for butter. Now, wait a minute.
I was like, we have so many other things on the menu. They're like, no, but this is what I came for.
It's your bread and butter.
Exactly. So people really like the bread and butter too.
Mm-hmm. I want to talk about, you mentioned a couple of events. So you have the Meet the Winemaker event. Mm-hmm. What are the other signature events that you have?
Yeah, so we try to do something every night of the week. So we're closed on Mondays and Tuesdays. Wednesday night, we do Wine Down Wednesday. So we do wine specials, and then we also have live music where we feature local musicians. Thursdays, we do all day happy hour. So that's really a day where, if you wanted to come in and really learn more about wine, there's not so many other things going on. So, our team can really dedicate more time talking through wine with you, helping you select wines, helping you kind of formulate your palate. So that's a really fun night that people like to come in. Friday night is a turn up. We have a DJ, like he turns up, like it's fun. People are dancing. They have their glass of wine. It's a good time. And then Saturdays, we do it like maybe once a month or every other Saturday. We do the Meet the Winemaker series where we bring in the winemaker, showcase their wines, do specials on their wines, and really get our customers introduced to those wine brands. And sometimes they're really established wine brands. So we, had an event with the McBride sisters for our anniversary week. We've had Brown Estate here, but we've also had smaller and newer brands come in too. So that's always fun. And then Sundays, we do Sunday brunches from 11 to 4. We have a DJ too. It's a good time, bottomless mimosas. So yeah, pretty much we got something going on every day.
Yeah. And one thing I can say, it's an oasis for any woman. But I mean, you just feel the energy as a Black woman, and you're hanging out with your girls, and it's just, it just really does capture that energy. And you're right. Speaking of your diverse aspect that you were shocked, I was there and I saw like a couple of diverse people, and I was like, oh, well, come on.
Yeah,
Because you really don't expect it, because it's in the central heart of Inglewood. So it's like, I don't know where you came from, but come on. And the welcoming environment. That was another thing I wanted to hand you another rose for. I mean, this place is immaculate. I love how you picked out the colors from like your featured wall. Everything is just perfect.
Thank you. So
you mentioned, or I definitely highlighted the fact that this is a vehicle for other Black businesses to shine and be highlighted. And I know there must be, in a world where there's not a lot of us in, I believe you mentioned it's like less than 1% of Black owned businesses within the winery field. How have you been able to receive your blessings, either financially or through marketing or however that may come? How were you able to do that? And how were you able to see that through in rooms where there was less of us, to kind of understand what your vision was?
Yeah, so I think it's two things. One, when we set out creating our menu, it wasn't that we wanted to have the largest selection of Black-owned wines in the state. We just eventually realized it as we were building our menu. And these were brands that I mentioned before that we already were drinking and enjoying at home. And so we didn't know that it was so unique what we were doing, right? We didn't know that it was going to become so popular. So because it is something that is unique, we've gotten a lot of publicity around it, which has really helped us to make money, and then also in turn order more wine from these wine companies so that they can make more money too. So yeah, it wasn't something that we were expecting at all. We knew that this space did not exist in Inglewood before. And so that's what we thought was kind of the unique factor about our space. Our tagline is first and only wine bar in Inglewood. But then we had to add the largest selection of Black-owned wines in the state of California, because that's not something that it was being done anywhere else. Like there's places that will carry one or two here, but there isn't a place that has such a large collection. And so we were really just, like you said, doing our business model, doing, what we had laid out to do, but we didn't know that it was going to be so unique and that people were going to take to it so much, which is why we've been able to kind of, in our first year of business, really be successful.
Absolutely. And again, thank you so much for just allowing yourself to be open in that space. And we mentioned off camera that you had to put on a very tough face in some situations to make sure this vision of yours came to pass. So thank you so much, Leslie. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate it.
One other question. How do you, or what would you say to inspire another person who is scared to take that step into their dreams of owning a business?
I think the biggest thing that kind of stops people from jumping all in is fear and comparison. So, when we opened up this space, of course, we visited other wine bars to kind of, see how they did things, kind of, have that experience so that we weren't just going at this completely blind. But wine bars in this city, wine bars in other city are completely different. They may not have a DJ. They might not, have the energy of it being kind of loud and buzzing and things like that. And we've had people come in and say, well, this isn't a traditional wine bar. Like, it's kind of loud. And so if you kind of stick to what other people are doing, then we might as well just have opened up another wine bar under another name and just did a franchise. But we wanted the space to be our own. So I tell people all the time, we look to see what other people are doing so that we are making sure like we're staying on trend. So we, make it, like I said, we don't have experience in this space. So make sure we're doing things correctly. But by no means does that alter like what our plans are and what we're going to do, because 1010 really is a true blend of me and my sister's personalities. And thankfully, people have enjoyed it and they love the space. But I think if we tried to do it any other way, it wouldn't be successful because it's not who we are. So I would just say do it and don't look to the left or to the right. Just stay focused on what your initial goal was.
And I'll close with saying it'll be natural. Everything up until leading to this point has been just natural things that you attracted to yourself.
Yeah.
So thank you again for taking the time and energy to meet with me and being yourself and opening this business.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Please join us next time on the Black Money Matters podcast as we discuss ways to empower our communities and get our people financially healthy. Follow us at the LA Sentinel on Twitter and Facebook, and subscribe to us on YouTube at Los Angeles Sentinel Newspaper. Also follow The Taste of Soul on Twitter and Facebook at Taste of Soul LA. Oh, and don't forget our Instagram at TOS_StreetFest LA. Thank you for listening. This podcast is sponsored content brought to you by JP Morgan Chase.